Kia ora. The following is a podcast with a really close friend and optometrist, Ryan O'Connor. Ryan graduated from the University of Auckland all the way back in 2011 with a Bachelor of Optometry, just like myself. Ryan is not only an optometrist, but he's also a father, a hunter, a keen outdoorsman, a person with really big dreams, an ex-sportsman, and he's also a fellow content creator with a podcast called The Stag Roar. I was lucky enough to be on that podcast about a year ago, and that's when I was so fearful to be in front of a camera. Thankfully, I think I've gotten a wee bit better. I don't know, you guys can let me know. I really made this podcast, or we want to talk about this podcast or have a discussion with me and Ryan because I'm quite negative about the career in optometry. On the flip side, Ryan is very, very passionate about optometry, and you'll see that in the podcast that we're about to play. He's very passionate about the career, and we talk about the ups and downs of optometry. We talk about corporatization, owning a practice, all that sort of stuff. And that was really marked by a comment that I got where a lot of our stuff I talk about is a bit negative, and I wanted to bring in a more positive perspective, a more balanced perspective about optometry and why it's a great career. So I really hope you enjoy the podcast and enjoy.
So Ryan, thank you so much for hopping on like a video call chat. I really want to make this video addressed to like people who are interested in optometry but kind of later down in their career. And I think a good thing to do is what's your pepper? Who are you? Like who are you? And like how'd you get into optometry?
Nice, mate. I'm Ryan O'Connor. So as the name suggests, I've got quite a lot of Celtic heritage. Plenty of Irish in me from both sides of my family, bit of Welsh and Scottish. I'm sure there's the odd Pom genetics there somewhere, but haven't done the genetics. But I grew up in Invercargill, started in South Invercargill until I was nearly 4, then moved out to Otawhara, which is towards the beach and the river. The Oriti River was about, I could walk there, go fishing there, which was handy for my dad, and then eventually my brothers, and also my mum, who all rowed on the river. I'd sit in the boat and go up the river, but I never got into rowing. I was more of a swimmer, soccer player, water polo player. Gave up swimming to keep pursuing soccer and water polo in high school. And when I was 12, I thought I was going to be a PE teacher in Queenstown, doing skiing and adventure racing and outdoor experience and stuff like that. And then I saw my brother get his eyes tested and was like, that's cool. Both my parents are involved with science. So my dad was a physics teacher. My mum was a microbiologist. So I had that sort of science-minded, science influence going on, and to see, little half an hour to 45-minute experiments going on in an optometry room, it looked like it paid pretty well. You sort of ran a business. I thought that was cool. So at age 12, I was like, right, I'm going to do that.
That's cool. So like, sorry, carry on.
From 12. And so I just found out, how the hell do you do this thing? And that was Richard Lobb, who was president of NZAO for a long period of time.
Yeah.
He comes and observes people's final exams and stuff like that still. I think Richard's gone down glaucoma prescribing these days, and he sort of does a lot of time at the hospital. So I found out that you go to Auckland, do my biomed, and all go in a plan, you get in and you become an optometrist, which wasn't what happened to me. So, yeah.
Yeah, because did you get, so obviously in New Zealand, Auckland University is the only place that offers optometry. What was the pathway? So it's really cool that at age 12, like you had that drive in you. Because like for me, it was kind of like, I just got in there. I think for a lot of people, it's just like, it just happens that they get into that career. But for you, you kind of knew age 12 that you want to do this. So what was the pathway that you went to get into optometry? Because I know it's an undergrad degree, it's a postgrad degree. What was your pathway?
Yeah, so knowing that, I knew by the time I got to 7th form, I had to do what they call the Agent 5.
Yeah.
Two maths, three sciences, which I was stoked about. I sort of followed in my brother's footsteps a little bit, just sort of begrudged English. I was quite stoked to get rid of that. Junior school, I dabbled in a bit of technology and drawing and graphics and stuff like that. Did geography, did 6th form accounting, and I thought I was, reasonably smart. Won a few school awards for academics and stuff, and then got to uni in those first 2 exams that are weighted 40%. tests, that are multi-choice. I got 49 and 50% in those, and so I knew I was screwed straight away. But I battled my way through first year, kind of learned how to study better, and I got waitlisted. So I was number 26 on the wait list, and I think we had 52 spots. And they told us that half of the people that they would give the positions to tend to decline because they got into med.
Wow.
Yeah. The opposite of your story, Shivan. So I waited until Waitangi Day to find out that I hadn't got in.
Okay.
And then because my brother had done engineering, I thought about doing that, going to Canterbury. But sort of the thing that weighted it on me carrying on, I think, was meeting a girl that was going to Otago. So I did that. I slept on my mate's couch in Cumberland Street for a week and found a flat with some year 3 students on Castle Street South. And just carried on doing biomedical science.
It was down in Otago, right?
In Otago. Yeah. So I'd done the first year in Auckland.
Yeah.
Committing to going to Auckland, which was a bit strange for a person from Invercargill growing up with Spates heads talking about, Jeffers and you can't.
Yeah, it's a different country, man.
Stuff like that.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I was quite at home being in Dunedin, being a Scarfy. I liked reproduction in human body systems. So I carried on doing reproduction and genetics.
Yeah.
And I did really well in the anatomy papers and pretty average in the genetics papers. It's like a foreign language. It's funny looking back and reading journals and stuff now. And I went to Invermay down in Mosgiel 5 years later, and they showed all this genetic testing for looking at genetics of sheep and beef and deer within New Zealand, and they had a whole bunch of the stuff that we talked about in that course, and it was just this moment of I know what all this stuff is from this 200 level paper, but at the time it was too hard. So I carried on in third year because I was wanting to get into optometry. That's why I was doing Bachelor of Science.
Mm-hmm. So you still had that drive in you, when you didn't get in, were you deflated, or you were just, this is it?
Mate, it was crushing, but I only had half a week to figure out what I was going to do with my life, so I didn't really have a chance.
It's crazy,
a chance to dwell.
Yeah. I think, just making the point of that, I think we make decisions about our future too young. That's my opinion. 1918 is just we don't know. We've not have no experience of the world to know what it's going to be like in a career choice is a 20-year, 40-year decision. So. Yeah, it's quite in it's just that knife edge kind of decision where you don't know if you're going to you're going to get in, so you need those plan B's and C's So, but then you still have that. It was deflating. You still have that drive in you, and you did it down a target, right? So you completed the degree. Then what happened?
Yeah. Also, the good thing about Otago is you go for registration, which is the first week of O week. So you basically have to show up for half an hour, queue up for your classes, and make sure that you've planned and enrolled properly.
Yeah.
And that's basically it for the first week.
Mm-hmm.
And then the second week is the introductory lectures, which are basically insignificant. Again, so you're showing up to 5 half-hour lectures in the first week. And so those first 2 weeks are just a big party orientation. Yeah. And so that was a really good way to let off steam. Mm. But I caught glandular fever.
Whoa, okay.
So my first term in Dunedin kind of got ruined a little bit because I basically went home to Invercargill, got a bunch of plusage and got to reset a bunch of assignments and stuff. It was quite good because I'd handed in the assignments and then got a bunch of feedback and they let me reset them, which was quite good. Okay. So I ended up with these elevated marks on that first term, and that really helped out. Okay. But as I said, I did well in the anatomy, and so they actually got me to do pre-honors. Yeah. So,
what year are you now? What year is it now? So it's been
into 300.
300. Okay. Yep.
Yeah. So I did all the 300 level anatomy papers. So I did reproduction, cellular anatomy, and neuroanatomy.
Yeah.
And then I did 200 neuroscience, 200 zoology, and we had this 300 level research paper as well. And I did 200 level sports nutrition as well. So I got a full bachelor's degree out of that, and had done a research proposal to potentially do as an honours or a master's or a postgrad diploma the following year. So yeah, I got that degree, and I was sitting there in summer being like, oh, I did the UMAT while I was in 300.
Yeah.
And I applied for Brisbane and Sydney.
Optometry over there.
And
Over the
yeah.
Okay, yeah. So you have to do UMAT for that, which is like I don't think that's around anymore. It's like a aptitude test. I think it's a money grab, right? Anyway,
I'm sure medicine still has to do it or something. But
yeah,
so
they'll do some sort of variant of it, some other random, some random acronym. I don't know. Anyway, carry on.
so yeah, I got so like cover my bases to get into optometry, but then I was thinking like, what's the road of doing a Bachelor of Science and like carrying on being academic? So I was like kind of throwing the science away, even though I'd done the pre-honors. I was like, oh, I don't think I'd go back and carry on and keep being academically minded. I was playing rugby at the time. I was in this thing called the Pre-Academy in Dunedin, trying to get into Otago and stuff like that. So I was like, well, if I don't get in, I'm going to go home. I'll start a building apprenticeship, but basically I'll play rugby and try like be a professional rugby player.
Wow. You never grew up with rugby, right? When did you start playing rugby?
I started playing in that first year of university.
Oh, yeah,
I
mentioned that.
I played National Youth League football.
Yeah.
And I got New Zealand secondary schools and under 18s water polo trial as well.
Wow. Okay. So you're pretty into sports. In other words, Ryan, you're very active. You're very active, like sports wise. Yeah.
Yeah. And I think that's like helped with this whole journey is like being able to set a goal, being able to like execute a plan, keep going, just keep training, This is the same with study. Keep studying, keep doing what you need to do. You get feedback. Don't let the feedback crush you. Just carry on, do what you need to do. And like, that's what happened. So yeah, had an interview in early January.
Yeah.
I remember Rob Jacobs was on the end of the phone.
Yeah.
Maybe
Andrew was it a phone interview or a...
Yeah, man. It was a phone interview.
Okay.
And it wasn't a conference call, so it was no like Zoom or anything like that.
No.
It was just literally my telephone sitting. I must have put it on hands free somehow. I can't remember. But like,
so that gives like a perspective of like our age. I think our age, right? Yeah.
That's right. So, yeah, that was like early 2010.
Yeah. So that was pre like Zoom, all that sort of stuff. There probably was video calling, but it was like limited, expensive. Skype, I think Skype was around back then.
Yeah,
it would have been the method of call. Yeah.
I think I had my like real cheap $100 Samsung flip phone.
Oh yeah. We didn't have no smartphones back then. Yeah, they were just introduced in 2007. Yeah, okay. And I don't think it was mainstream till like later on. Yeah.
Yeah, but I was working in the elements matter that summer and the summers in between.
Yeah.
So I had a big stack of cash when I went to Auckland, and I went to Auckland early, and I bought an iPhone 3 GS when I got to Auckland.
Oh, nice.
I went in to buy the Nokia like side flip one that had the keyboard, and they took me into the iPhone, and yes, I was early.
Nice. So they did well. Wow, that's pretty good. So so if people are watching this, they don't know who Rob Jacobs is. It Rob Jacobs, Andrew? Oh, that's pretty bad, isn't it? Rob Jacobs and Dr. Andrew Collins.
Well, Andrew Sinks. Collins, that's the one. Yeah, I did a summer studentship with him. He's head of department now.
Yeah, he's a department. Yeah, so these are two individuals who are like academics in the optometry realm, and what Ryan's talking about is there's like a graduate entry, right? It's the graduate entry. So you got the undergrad, which is you do 1 year of biomed in Auckland University, and you get in. The other pathway is you complete a degree and you apply through postgrad. And typically for a postgrad graduate, you need to do an interview, which is what Ryan's talking about. Apparently, a phone interview, and then that went pretty smoothly, and you got in, right?
Yeah. I asked a few people like what would the questions be, and so I had some answers written out, and they were just basically what I was passionate about, of course.
Which is a no brainer. No brainer.
Yeah.
So yeah.
But I got off that call, and I had profusely sweated. I stunk, and I was soaked, and I was like, wow, that's like a big deal to me, apparently.
Yeah. Nice, good on you, Ryan. I mean, it worked out, right? So you got in.
Yeah, got in, and then of course we have optics for the whole year.
Yeah.
And your open book exam, which your class has the infamous tale of.
Yeah. So tell me, so you got in. How did it go? Like how was how did the degree go? Was it what you expected?
I definitely found it hard. I was a battler.
Yeah.
I was like 0.4 GPA off getting honours, which was a bit gutting.
Okay, this is the optometry degree, right?
Yeah.
The entire degree, yeah. So just like a snapshot, it was a lot of fun. Like I think we pretty much had the same core structure, right? Like, so
Yeah.
Ryan, you were like part 5. So like optometry is a 5-year degree. When I started optometry, that's a 4 year. It's 4 years plus. It's 5 years plus that 1 year intermediate. So I was part 2, which is the second year.
4 plus the intermediate.
Or plus the intermediate. Yeah, 4 plus the intermediate. Sorry. Yeah.
Yeah.
And like, so obviously there is no part 1. There's part 2, which is like your first year of optometry. And then Ryan was part 5 when I was part 2. That kind of gives you but we're basically the same like age now, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And like, in their second last year, Jacob and I, well, mostly Jacob really.
Yeah.
Came Jacob Benefield, who's now at Naylor Palmer in Palmerston North.
Yeah.
You work fielding with his wife.
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah, and like he basically came up with the idea of the student association.
INZOS. Yeah. So you're one of the founding members of INZOS as well. So I'll include that in there.
First treasurer. I think I can't remember how much money we got in that kitty to hand over to the next year. But yeah, and we like started the whole like need a rural rep. That was good. I think they're still around, the grassroots rep.
Yeah, I think in NZOS, or New Zealand Optometry Student Association, so that's like the association for optometry, the optometry class at Auckland University. That's flourishing. I think it's grown with more roles. They've had more sponsorship, and I think like companies see it as like big companies like Specsavers, OPC, they see it as like a thing to invest in. So they get a lot of sponsorship, I guess. So just from what I've glanced on their Facebook page, but it's like it's grown since you founded it, so you started something. I find
that like a bit like the industry itself. I find that corporatization of INZOS is a little bit of a like bummer, because that was kind of what the Student Society was kind of set up to, like really get fingers into the industry. And of course, like the industry has been dominated by corporates, and there's more corporates lining up to come into the country. But yeah, it was kind of like, well, what's it all about? What's the career all about? Go talk to some people, but all you get is recruitment agents selling you the dream.
Exactly. Yeah. I mean, that's how it works, right? Pretty much industries across the board, right? If you have money, you can hire someone to recruit you, do all the tactics. I don't know. You need to be smart about it. But that's kind of like what I want to work on, like move on to now. So we know pretty much history. Ryan wanted to be an optometrist since he was 12 years old, 12-year-old boy, always had that drive. There was a few failures along the way, but you made it. What was work history like? So you graduated. What happened after that?
Yeah, so I think like when you messaged me asking this question, I sort of had to think about it. When I saw Richard's practice, I always used to draw logos and stuff, and I would draw like O'Connor optometrists. So I think the whole idea of being like a business owner and a director, and like running the practice has always been part of it.
Yeah.
I evidently signed up with Specsavers to do the graduate program because I thought that was going to be a pathway to practice ownership.
Yep.
Unfortunately, probably by a year, I was pretty bored. I was like, can I start with Pathway now, which is the graduate program lasts 2 years, and then the pathway is kind of after that.
Yep.
And they're like, nah, you got to complete the graduate program. And I was like, well, can you give me something to do? And they offered me Fred Hollows to Papua New Guinea, which would have been so sick.
Yeah.
But unfortunately, like the week before I was about to go, we were on like a security call.
Yeah.
And then someone brought up the fact that 2 doctors who were locals had just been kidnapped that week.
And so
within about half a day, I get this email being like, oh, nah, we're not going to take the risk and send you anymore. So I missed out on that. And yeah, I had a girlfriend at the time that wanted to move to the North Island. My brother at the time, he lived in Cambridge, and I ended up getting bought out of my graduate retainer and moved to Hamilton.
That's the thing. I don't know if it's still a thing. So a lot of corporates will offer like a retainer, and the idea is like if you work in a kind of a what it's called an urban environment, you get paid a little bit less. That means you get less of a retainer. If you go into like, I think it would have changed since I graduated, or even like when Ryan graduated. But there's like you obviously get paid more in rural locations. They give you a higher retainer. A retainer is basically it's like money they give you, and if you leave within this like 2-year period, you have to essentially give it back. So it's great money to have, or you get all back. Yeah, or I don't know. Some depending on the owner of practice, it's pro rata. Some people you have to give it all back. Let's say if you're supposed to be there for 24 months and you leave in 22 months, you got to give it all back. There's all different types of stories. There's probably different ways to negotiate, but yeah, just be wary of that. I think that's kind of it's idea of loss aversion. So if you were to stay there for 2 years and get let's say $10,000, you're more likely to leave, but you're less likely to leave if you get $10,000 initially and then you have to work 2 years. Hope that makes sense, because it's like that loss aversion. So you just be wary of that. And these are some tips for like future optoms, people who want to graduate. So yeah, that's kind of I guess it's a good incentive to like get new graduates. Another thing they do is also relocation. I don't know if you had relocation, Ryan. So that's where
relocation. Yeah,
that's where you get
And I also had like a couple of grand bonus while I was still at uni too.
Oh, okay, yeah.
So I had a sign-on bonus as well.
Yeah, which is good for students, right? Because students, when you just switch to like pretty much I don't know really bad like really crappy jobs to full-time optometry or like even just a few $1,000s, it's amazing.
Oh mate, because I was working weekends. And I was talking about it on the weekend. I would finish work on a Friday at like 6 a.m. and I was trying to play rugby. So I'd like finish at 6 a.m.
Yeah.
Like try and get a little bit of sleep and then try and go play rugby and then do it again on Saturday night.
Yeah.
And then try and study. And I was just so wrecked.
What were you doing during uni? What were you working? What was the job? 6 a.m.
So
were you like
the first couple of years I was an optical assistant at Newmarket at Specsavers.
Yeah.
And then that year I changed to work in hospitality. I worked at the Captain Cook Tavern when I was in Dunedin in that third year of university.
Yeah.
And I'd done security there, so it was like the cruisiest job ever. I just sort of...
so you just stand there, but then like obviously there's a fight,
I just sort of
you break it up.
Stayed around inside, and it was just it was mostly like a freshers bar.
Yeah.
So it was I was 20, going on 21, like working hard out for rugby.
Yeah, so you're a big dude. And how tall are you?
Pushing,
you're like 6'2" or something? 6'3"?
No, I'm 6 foot, and I was pushing about 98 kgs.
Oh wow!
And so it would just be like, mate, you've drunk too much. Come outside, and go to another bar.
Okay.
It was that easy.
Yeah.
Then in Auckland, I worked at Pemberton Grey, and I was just working bar work, and we had to clean up after we finished. So to get like a couple of grand meant I didn't have to work anymore, and it was just like such a relief.
Tell me about the boredom aspect. So you talked about like let's say we come back to work, we've got our job, it's been a year, you're getting bored. What was the contribution to boredom? Because you had the idea, you had that vision of ownership. Yeah. Obviously you want to do pathways. What was the catalyst to that feeling, that boredom?
And I think with the beauty of hindsight, I would have been bored owning a Specsavers too.
Yeah.
But like I went into the industry with being passionate about sports vision, being passionate about behavioural. That was partly why I went to Riccarton, is they were still doing behavioural then. I think they still are. I don't know if they've been able to work that. Wanted to do Ortho K, despite not like fitting any hard contact lenses at uni. I wanted to fit some.
Yeah. So these are all like kind of what do you call it, subspecialities of optometry. Yeah, so behavioral optometry, sports vision involves like more things that we don't get taught in university, I guess. We don't get much exposure. Same with, I don't know if things have changed now, but yeah, orthokeratology, hard lenses, like Ryan was saying, no fits in uni, so not much exposure in uni. I think things have changed because when I was in university, like this year, because I went there to do like work with Isan, it was like, it was packed. Like they were booked back to back to back. And when I was there was like empty days, no patients. So I think they've really done well with getting patients in. So they might be getting that exposure. But yeah, so Ryan, he wanted to do all those things. That's why he went down to Specsavers and Riccarton, but didn't eventuate, or what was the deal?
Yeah, no, it was Shop-optometry basically.
Yeah.
And like, I'm pretty passionate about full scope optometry.
Yeah.
And I think what's changed at the uni as well is like, I don't know if you've glanced over the 2022-23 myopia report. I think it only just came out.
Okay.
And it's basically like,
tell me about it.
If anyone's myopic, basically you should be doing
everything.
Myopia prevention.
Yeah, everything. Yeah.
And so, and that's probably been in the uni the last 5 years. So like I say, the difference between when you graduated and now, that's probably front of mind. Like whereas we were giving out -3 glasses. And going, maybe you should thin that lens
Yeah,
down.
to like an 8-year-old, you know. What sort of age scope would you start myopia control? Is it between ages 8 and 12, or like even if it's younger, that's like warning signs, you know?
Yeah. So
Yeah.
today I had 9-year-old with a myopic, moderate, late teens myopic father,
Yeah.
Emmetropic mother, and it was like, hey, you're coming back in 6 months. He's also got some allergy and mild Demodex there.
Mm-hmm.
So like, 6 months is a good time for that too. He's pretty low risk. He's 9 already. He's still hyperopic. His dad's, late teens -225 or 275 or something like that. So, but as we saw at that conference, that's still a pretty big increase in risk for macular degeneration. So, that was pretty motivating stat, that increased risk factor for macular degeneration.
Yeah. Do you know what you're going to do if he does progress? Like if he comes back in 6 months, are you going to just shotgun him with everything? HP, MySmart, Ortho-K? Yeah.
Yeah. So I've got that myopia profile handout that shows MySmart, HP, Ortho-K, MySight. We've got all those tools. We've got NatureView lenses as well. I've been using those. When did I move to Hawke's Bay? 2019. I've been pretty hard out on that. Did a little bit. Started doing Ortho-K when I was in Australia. Yeah, which was quite cool. I had to teach myself it, which was quite good. Yeah, because I was the only one there. Mm-hmm. And I was like, it was a good opportunity being in Australia, because it was just me, so I could just practice however I wanted. Like if I wanted to do Ortho-K, I just read the manual, did it, contacted the rep, be like, what have I done wrong? What's I still do with iSpace? So design the lens, contact the guys and be like, is this right? And they're like, yeah.
Yeah, that's the way you learn, right? It's like that's another thing I kind of faced when I graduated from university. Have you heard about imposter syndrome, Brian? I had the feeling, but I couldn't put the words. Yeah, I didn't know what imposter syndrome was at the time, but I just knew I watched a speech that you gave actually in my last year of university, I think, or the year before, I can't remember. You came back and you sort of explained what it was like being an optometrist. Maybe I was part 3, I think, and you just graduated and you were talking about your job at Specsavers, how you feel like, that first exam you ever have as a professional optometrist, you feel like you're going to just run overtime, things are just not going to happen. You feel like that. And you even said that it'll be fine. You don't have to do every test under the sun, or you don't, you feel like, I think your first patient was a multifocals, right? Multifocals, you just fitted them like no business, right? Yeah, and then no matter how you feel, you always feel like I'm not worthy enough, or I don't feel confident enough. Once you graduate, this is I just remember it so well. I was nervous, the first few days, because I went to Christchurch, was there for a wee bit, just nervous about starting work, but then it's fine. It turns out to be okay. So
it was so funny at that talk as well. I was massively high on the Dunning-Kruger. I thought I was doing great, and then I can't remember his name. From Timaru, basically was like, well, if you come to independent optometry, you could treat all these diseases and stuff like that. I was just like, oh, shut up, man. Just steal my
because when I was at Specsavers, there was a lot of there's an independent optometry versus corporate there's a little clash, you could say. And when I was working at corporate at the time, I just felt why say that? Who cares where you work? It's just we're all optometrists. But
well, that's the perspective we've both got. When you're working independent now, and people are like, oh, I've come to you because I want a real eye exam. And it's like, well, they're all graduated from the same university, just the business models. The business model is different. It's I always say, I would hope that the optometry that you received in the room would be of the same quality as what you're receiving here.
Exactly.
And now the time pressure and the way you communicate and your options are different, but the quality of someone looking into your eyes and making sure there's nothing wrong, and giving you a refraction, which is the building blocks of what you then get prescribed, is the same. That's the difference, though. The time and the explanation and the tools to explain things, and as we know, with technology, the explaining is going to be exponential. There's already interactive tools out there. One's called Rendier. I used that in Hawke's Bay. It was amazing. I can't remember what the other interactive tool is. What Isan's doing with Toku Eyes, that's just that blows my mind.
Yeah. It's incredible.
We were talking today at work about mole mapping. Yeah. And I was like, man, that way of doing skin cancer screening is about to be destroyed. You're going to have a high level 3D camera take a high quality photograph of your whole body, and then an AI look at that, look at all those moles and freckles, and then every time you have one of those, is going to keep building the picture of you and go, that one's changed.
Exactly.
It's going to be like that.
It's going to change the game, I think. So it won't replace jobs, but it's just like, it's good to know how these tools work. Ryan, you talked about like shop-optometry. So that's kind of like we're just selling glasses. We're not really doing the full scope of optometry. Like, we're not using all the tools that we used in like what we learned in university and what optometrists are capable of. What did you do after your time in corporate? Where'd you go? What did you do? Because you went to Australia, right? Or you went up to Hamilton?
So in between, I went to Hamilton for 2 years. So I worked initially Te Awamutu and Hamilton, and I was living in Cambridge. And then moved into Hamilton for a year. I lived with Juggerut while I was there.
Oh, nice.
Which was cool.
Yeah.
And then I moved back to Cambridge and started working in Cambridge, as well as Te Awamutu and Hamilton.
Yep.
So I sort of helped write a little bit of behavioural protocol while I was at Patterson Byrne.
Yep.
With David Byrne and initially Kim. I can't remember her name. She now works at Enstis in Christchurch, I think.
Okay.
And so we started to get that up and running. I was trying my best to do Ortho-K, but again, you've got to like see kids. And at the time, it was like, oh, you need myopia progression before you should instigate myopia control. Whereas that's now.
Now it's like you should be doing it ASAP, like before. Yeah.
So that was just like the confidence and the knowledge and sort of like the proof. Like going back to early adopting, like I was like keen, but again, in imposter syndrome, you're like, you don't want to seem too keen that you feel like you're selling it. Whereas when you've got validation for doing something, then you've got much more confidence when you do it.
Exactly.
That was that was what it was like in 2015, 16, 17. Then I went to Australia.
Yeah.
Northern Rivers. Did that through.
What was Australia? So were you is it quite rural where you were? I don't know Australia that well. Like, and like how do you compare Australia versus New Zealand?
Yeah, so it was sort of semi-rural. So Ballina is half an hour south of Byron Bay. And so Ballina is right on the river. It's got like quite a high retiree population.
Yep.
The previous owner had seen the writing on the wall in what like superannuation and like interest rates and stuff was paying. So he had moved off to the Gold Coast.
Mm-hmm.
And a buying group had bought this practice. And it had been sort of about a year or so of someone sort of permanent being there.
Mm-hmm.
So my patient base had been destroyed. So I'd like sat twiddling my thumbs a lot of the time there, which was a bit of a bugger. And then the other 2 days I went inland an hour, and that was a Eye Care Plus, I think they're called, or something like that, which again was a buying group in Australia, and it had been sold to this other buying, collective practices. So this collective headwear was buying up retiring optometry practices.
Oh, okay.
And this one inland was part of this buying group, Eye Care Plus, which I think is still around, or it's been merged with like George and Matilda or something. Yeah. Anyway, lots of acquisitions going on in Australia.
Yeah.
So the one in Ballina was high end because it used to cater for retired wealthy people.
Yep.
And the one inland was very much like Medicare, bring them back as fast as possible. No money exchanges hands. Everything's
billing or bulk billing.
Bulk billing.
Yeah, tell me about that. Okay, so for like, I've never worked in Australia. I've got no idea what it's like. And another thing that I just thought about was, is there much difference between like boutique optometry and just regular optometry you get out and like where you were with full on Medicare? Like, it's just location, right? And the clients you see, right? It's not really and maybe the type of frames you get, I think, really.
Yes. So we had Limburg frames initially. We ended up getting rid of them because we had no clients. You got to put through a lot of units of Limburg to keep that to be able to sell it, because I think you got to stock like 30 of their frames.
Yeah.
Which are like exquisite, stunning, but they're like a $700 to $900 frame, and basically you pick out what you want from all the display frames, and then you basically make a bespoke frame for yourself. We were using Zeiss lenses originally. We changed to Hoya, which wasn't too much of a change. It was just like two good lenses. We had things like Facifast, Annette Valentine, those real high-end brands.
Yep.
Whereas inland we just had frames basically. There wasn't like no style going into anything. Yeah, it was quite different. So I think in terms of like boutique optometry, it's very much about your clientele.
And the frames,
Yeah, Ballina was lucky that it was a place where people from Melbourne and Sydney had retired to with lots of money prior. And I think that had sort of shifted to Gold Coast in this guide. That's why this guide gone to Gold Coast, I think.
Wow, incredible. Yeah, because I think a key point for that is like it doesn't really matter where you work because you're kind of doing the same job, right? As an optometrist, it doesn't really matter where you work. You're doing the same thing, apart from like obviously like subspecialities, but like just because you work in a practice that doesn't see like the richest people doesn't mean your job's any different to where you're at. Like you're still doing eye care, in other words, right? You're still doing the best for the patient. Yeah,
that's right. And it was quite good as well with ophthalmology in Ballina.
Yeah,
actually, in the whole of the Northern Rivers, being so close to Gold Coast and Brisbane, there were and being quite a like laid back holiday destination. Lots of those, and there was a hospital at Lismore. So there was lots of consultants, lots of guys that were sort of, 3 days in the Northern Rivers, 2 days up in the Gold Coast, or vice versa. And so it was, and I think, especially in Ballina, lots of people had private health insurance. You're incentivized to have private health insurance in Australia.
Yeah.
And if you earn over 90,000, you get a tax break if you have private health insurance.
Yeah.
To try and lower the load on Medicare.
Okay.
And so, like, referral process was just like so sweet and simple. The surgeons were quite confident. So, like, the biggest one that I noticed in Australia was epiretinal membranes. Mm-hmm. The ophthalmologist said to us, like, send them to me at 6'9" or 6'12", and I'll probably do the surgery. If I get them at 6'18", then our prognosis is pretty poor, but still send them anyway, and we'll have a discussion. We'll do the OCT, we'll look at it, and yeah. So it was like very proactive. Mm-hmm. Whereas when you got public system, even if you're sending an epiretinal membrane that's like 6'12", you often get it back like, I'm monitoring in 6 months to make sure it doesn't progress, and you're like, oh. Like, do it now. Like, save the site. Keep them driving vision.
Improve quality of life. Because, like, do you think, comparing New Zealand and Australia, about the same pros and cons? What are the pros and cons? I feel like Australia, a lot of people go, a lot of money. Australia is a beautiful country. There's more things to do. Yeah. What about So you came back to New Zealand as well. But yeah, pros and cons.
Yeah. So Ballina was epic. I lived over the road from the beach.
Yeah. Coming back to being outdoorsy, right? Yeah, your personality kind of would shine in that area, right?
Yeah, so my day would start, I'd get up at like 4:20. I'd do Wim Hof breathing, I'd go to the CrossFit gym, warm up, do a class from 5 till 6. So like people were so active. We had like a class of 20 at 5 a.m. They were all just like go-getters. Like my rugby coach, Andrew, he was like, mid-40s. There was another guy, Sam, same age. They went and did this thing called Seal Fit in the States.
Yeah.
Our coach, she went to the CrossFit Games shortly after I left Australia. She also did Seal Fit. We had a guy there who almost went to the Commonwealth Games for Olympic lifting for South Africa.
Wow.
So he was our coach. He was there studying in Lismore. So it was just like real high-end CrossFit gym, like improved so much.
Yeah.
And then I'd finish that at 6 a.m. I'd go back home, go for a swim in the ocean, come back in. Billy, she was not even one. So like I'd kind of wake her up, or she'd wake up, make breakfast, have the sun shining in my balcony, then like just like trundle 5 minutes to work.
5 minutes to work. Yeah. Were you driving or just walking? Just walk to work or?
No, just driving.
Driving, 5-minute drive to work. Yeah.
8:30 till 5. Like the practice was right on the river. So like, Billy would come in and play on the playground, or like I'd go home for lunch, or, because I had an hour lunch. It's just awesome. Like cafe just down, walk to another beautiful beach. Like I say, half an hour up to Byron Bay. The hinterland and up there is just incredible. So yeah, it was like lifestyle wise was amazing. Money was more. I had like so when was that? That was 2018, and I had like a 2016 Holden Captiva. I was able to go for lunch and stuff like that. Pay rent was about $450 at the time, so like pretty similar to New Zealand.
Yeah,
for a whole house.
Yeah. And like obviously, your partner there and your child. Yeah,
but I was like, over the road from the beach. So,
Yeah, even better. Yeah, wow. It's like whoa, okay. Why'd you leave?
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
Complicated
Yeah.
answer, right? Yeah, fair enough.
Yeah.
But so yeah, coming back to New Zealand, what was the transition? Because you had this dream of, I guess you had the dream of owning a practice, right? You had that kind of
Yeah.
yeah.
So yeah, I was over there to have an experience.
Yeah.
I sort of thought I'd be gone for 3 years, maybe 4 years, and then come back to New Zealand. And I'd kind of planned to come back to New Zealand and join Shackies in Hawke's Bay, and potentially buy in. And I was also hoping to like have money. I was also hoping to like travel to Bali, on holidays, potentially take a holiday in Europe, go to like Italy and stuff like that. That's why I started learning Italian. So that was like the dream. But unfortunately, with a young child, like we went there when she was 3 months old. Yeah. My ex was already struggling with that, and so it just didn't really work out.
Yeah, fair enough.
She was too isolated, and we needed to come back to New Zealand. But we moved to Hawke's Bay, and so my ex was still isolated, so I didn't really solve that problem. And then we're under massive financial stress because it was gigantic pay cut.
Oh yeah, coming into New Zealand, it was a big
and then like cost of living in New Zealand is like it's very noticeably different.
Different in the sense like it's more or less.
Yeah, it's more.
It's more.
So
okay.
rent was more, food's way more expensive.
Okay, so you're getting paid less. Okay, so it's like that's like a tip to like future optoms who want to like just go across the ditch. Like it sounds better. I don't know. It depends. There's pros and cons. Were there cons in Australia? What were the cons of Australia being a New Zealand optometrist?
Obviously, the practice I was in was not that well run. It was just another number amongst a large group of practices that group was, looking to sell in one way or another.
Okay. So all they want to do is just get an optom in there, get the numbers up, and then look good on paper. See you later.
Yeah.
Okay.
And I don't even know if it mattered how we performed as a practice. Like that's how like much of a scale it was. Like looking back on it, I don't even know if that mattered. It was just sites that could be sold to the share market or could be sold to an insurer or something like that. Like that's the perspective I have of who I worked for. No, that's just my experience. Yeah.
Wow.
But it was fun. I had lots of freedom, and but it also had nothing to do when I was in Ballina.
Yeah, fair enough. Well, it sounds like you made the most of it. So coming in back to New Zealand,
I read lots.
Read lots. Okay.
I read lots.
When did the podcast start? When did that? When did content creation like become a thing? When did it like?
So I had that already, 2017, when I was still in New Zealand.
Yeah. What was the drop of like? When did it all like just okay? I'm going to do this. Be consistent because you've been consistent for 5 years now. Like you're pumping out like two podcasts a week, right?
So last year I did one long form every week.
Yeah,
and I sort of had that went back until about November or something. Might have even been the lockdowns.
Yeah,
that were in August. So I think I went like every week had a long form podcast up until the end of the year. And I'm going to record one tomorrow. I'm going to record one on Thursday, and I'm trying to jack up to do like 2 or 3 others, get them done, get them recorded, and again put them out each week. And then I had these like mini podcasts, which again I'm going to get another book to read to do that.
So you do kind of a book club, like it's just you and the camera. I've seen some of them, like it's just you and the camera. Yeah, you just talk about this concept or this book. Okay.
Yeah. So the books are the New Zealand Game Records, which is like hunting. And, this book's really good. It's got stories about each of the trophies. That's that mini. So they're about 5 minutes. Yeah, they're pretty cool.
Yeah, that's really cool. So it means it shows like with optometry, you can do like other things. Like obviously when you're in Australia, you're doing all of that. Like you got really fit, you got into really good shape. Well, you are still in good shape. You got really good shape. You're able to do like all these kind of cool outdoorsy kind of activities and still have a good job that paid really well. You know, that's kind of that is a benefit of optometry. That's like a bonus of optometry. Coming here, obviously, like you get the luxury of Australia, but coming back to New Zealand, it costs a bit more, but it's still survival, right? You're still like better than the average person, right? Yeah. Unfortunately, you know.
and not to bag on my ex because there's compounding factors, but I don't know if I changed the way I thought, but I like implemented a lot of thoughts and improved on learning like on financial literacy and stuff. Like things like paying yourself first, that concept
Yep.
didn't really know about. I'd always budgeted, but I never knew what to do from there. And especially this last like year and a half, come across Keep the Change. I then and it was funny because I talked to my older brother, and he was like, "Oh, what's your position?" And I was like, "Oh, I don't even know what that is." And shortly after that, I started listening to Keep the Change, and the first thing he teaches is like, "Do your position each month," and like that's been like such a valuable tool because like cash flow wise, you can get to the end of the month and like, oh fuck, my bank balance is zero, like my cash flow bank balance is zero, and then you've got like, I don't know, I've got things in Sharesies, things in Simplicity, my KiwiSaver, this house, my cars, stuff like that.
Oh, do you div super as well from Australia, or that's not a thing?
I transferred that to New Zealand
that makes sense.
last year.
Yeah.
And to like then see it each month, like laid out, like, hey, my net position's improving, like gives you confidence, and it's like, oh righto. So when I, inverted commas, pay myself at the start of each pay cycle, that actually goes somewhere, and that actually gives my future self something. Whereas when you just like, look, oh well, what did I buy and what did I get paid and what did I spend last month? And you go, cool, like, yeah. So that sort of mindset shift. I got paid a little bit more, but I changed jobs a couple of times.
Yeah.
Oh, actually, that pay rise was just changing jobs once.
That's another thing too. I think like the issue with optometry, you could be in a practice for 20 years, but if you want to get more money, the best way is to just switch jobs. That's where you get competing offers, you get higher offers. You can like a tactic I was told by someone is if they ask for your salary, just say what your salary is plus 10K plus 5K, and they'll try and match it. So that's really like
there was a shit thing coming back from Australia, like being paid so well over there, and being like, they give you a job offer, and it was something like 25K lower, and I was like, I can't accept that.
Yeah, plus like, less benefits, less,
and less super, like you said. And I was like, and they're like, oh, we only pay ourselves this, so we could give you that. And I was like, but that's like your salary. You guys are. You're employing me so that you guys don't have to work as much and can get more dividends. I was like, this is rough.
Plus the asset will appreciate, right? Like their share in the business will appreciate too. So
and like I'm coming to you guys knowing how to use your practice management software, bringing specialty clinic skills, which you're going to charge accordingly for. You don't need to train me. I've got, what did I have, like 5 years experience at that point in time. So it was like a little bit of a bummer, and like I probably didn't push hard enough, I don't know, but there was a lot of emotionality in moving. So it was just kind of like I had to accept it. Like my other option was trying to buy a practice, which I couldn't because I just didn't have any capital. Or any leverage or anything like that. So which is funny. Like I do feel like my first sort of 18 months after uni was paying for my sins of uni, being overdrawn and all that sort of stuff. Then there was like a nice little mellow period where I like accumulated some cash and like we bought a house, and then there was kind of 4 years of chaos where I basically had to start again. And then it's been pretty amazing what I've been able to achieve in 2 years with the help of my partner. And like, so it's that whole like 2 years, 5 years, 10 years type stuff. And now being in a position where I want to buy, the whole time I've been wanting to buy a practice. But like
you're close, right? So what's happening now? Are you allowed to say, or what's the
I'm on an NDA. So that's basically it.
Okay, good luck. No matter what way it goes, I wish you all the best. Because maybe we can do a pod later when it all comes through.
Well, I don't know what I'm going to do if this doesn't go through, but
it's one of those hurdles, right, that you've been through before.
And like as I was talking to him, like we got some information today, and it's like, well, what do you got planned for the next like 5-10 years? And it's like you and our girls. It was like, we might as well, see if we can do it. So it's going to be due diligence and all that sort of stuff, and Yeah.
Can you go through? Okay, so let's say
So
someone
that'll
wants,
cost.
yeah, that'll cost money. Obviously, lawyers and valuators. Could you are you
Yeah.
allowed to go through like, let's say I want to buy a practice. What do I have to think about beforehand? What are the skills I need? What's the process going to be like?
Oh, the best thing you can have is capital.
Yeah. So
It'll be-
essentially, like if you want to be a practice owner, you need to have money in the beginning. What about owning being a Specsavers partner? Is that another option? Do you pay a bit less as a Specsavers partner because you can loan out more from Specsavers, or what's the? Because instead of going to a bank, you can just loan out from Specsavers, right? They are their own bank.
Yeah, I think vendor finance is quite simple and straightforward when it comes to Specsavers. I don't know what the rate is from Specsavers. I can't imagine it's accessible, but because it's accessible, I'm sure the rate's a little higher, but it means that you can get into it. Yeah, so that was like the attraction of Pathway, but
Yeah.
Also quite great. I find it funny when like on LinkedIn you'll get OPCM or Specsavers or Oscar Wiley being like, hey, well, we've got very attractive remuneration. Come on board. And you're like, no, thank you.
Yeah, I've noticed that. So I think they've been really desperate. So I think in New Zealand, especially, I think this is commentary, I guess. A lot more practices are starting to open up. Like we've got Costco, I think. I saw a Costco ad somewhere. Yeah. A Costco ad. So Oscar Wiley's coming in, Bailey Nelson's like stepping in, OPSM stepping in, Specsavers stepping in. So what that means, and the number of optometrists hasn't gone up. So what that actually means is they're very they're throwing cash at like optometrists. So I think the salaries I'm seeing are just it's ridiculous, like more than I would ever imagine when I graduated. So what's your thoughts? That's what I'm seeing. Yeah,
you'll have to get on a pro rata salary wherever, but then again, then you've got your problem of you're not mobile.
Yeah, you're kind of stuck in a situation, like you may be stuck in a situation you don't want to be in. I don't know, but did you have any ups or downs in optometry? Did you ever think this is not what I want to do? I regret it. Wish I could just be a builder in Invercargill.
Oh, yeah.
What were the ups and downs?
So my dream is to own a deer farm.
Yeah,
so again,
yeah.
that
Your long-term goal.
Even more capital. And so what if I didn't spend those 4 years in Auckland? As I said, I had to pay for those sins. What if I didn't spend those 4 years in Auckland? What if I'd been done a building apprenticeship, and now I ran a building company, or I had realized that I wanted to be a farmer, and now I was like a 2IC of some massive station and like living the dream type stuff.
Yeah,
I get that, and when it comes to now and the whole like dream of practice ownership, yeah, I don't know if I can continue being happy being an employee. Like I said, with optometry, since I was 12, the whole dream was owning a practice, and I've sort of done various personality assessments, and it's all come to like dominant personality. So the Myers-Briggs is like, I'm a commanding personality.
Yeah.
Just I'm like a dominant personality type thing. Dotting is like red, and I did what's called like the Clifton Strengths Finder last year, and it's like I'm quite analytical. I'd like to take action really fast, and my number one strength is competition. And so
that explains all the sports, CrossFit. yeah. So you're a competitive person. You want to be in charge. You want to do things.
Yeah, and like that with the activating thing, it's like when I see opportunity, I want to be able to act on it.
Yeah,
and there's a lot of optometrists have the person's name on the door, and so for you to then rock up as the employee and go, "Hey, we should do this," it's I think you end up insulting the person.
Oh, okay, yeah.
Yeah.
So let's say
it's
when you want to bring a suggestion, and it's like, no, we can't do that. You're the employee. Just do the eye exams. That's why I found in one of my jobs, I always want to do more. And this is why this is why I had this dissatisfaction. Like you would make a suggestion, nothing happens, or the response I got was, we just hired you to do eye exams. Just do eye exams. Just focus on the basics, but just do the eye exam. Don't think about all these big ideas. Just do the basics first. So that was kind of I just felt like a chess piece, And there was another job I had where I just felt like there's this concept of the big kids and the small kid, or the adults and like the children. Like you feel like a child if you're an employee. There's like all the big adults got to make the big decisions about what to do, practice. Because I remember at one practice I wanted to work at, I really wanted to like do stuff with the website, blogs, like internet stuff, and like because that was really like, I'm really into that sort of stuff at the time, but it was never cultivated. And my job was just to do eye tests. That's how they got money out of you. We live in a capitalistic society. They want your utility is to do eye tests and get people to buy glasses, do exams. That's like the utility of an optometrist, not to dream big.
Yeah,
That
was what was frustrating in the last role, and like the timing of Topol was like massive. It was literally like I had a disagreement with the CEO, and then the day before I'd been asked, do I want to come and discuss the options in Topol? And I was like, funny you should say that. Things aren't going well. And like, from KPI perspective, I was crushing it in Tokoroa. And like, but I knew like I could have made that practice, even more crushed. Like, there's so many things that we could have implemented in that practice to increase all those KPIs. Yeah. And like, you try to bring up one and just get like shut down and told to shut up. And I was just like, this is not fun.
Yeah, so that's where you want to be in the driving seat, right? So that's where ownership comes into play. You want to be in that driving seat.
Yeah. Or even just like I wanted to be a director, a shareholder.
So you've got stake in the game, right? It's like because I feel like with an employee, and also no matter how hard you work, it's just nothing. Like if a volcano were to erupt and the practice were to shut down for a day, you just get paid the same. Versus you could work really, really hard and it's the same monetary result. I guess it's incentives, like you feel good about the hard work you've done, but I just couldn't get that over my head.
Yeah, and like playing like high level sport. Yeah, I'm like totally okay with my idea being shut down and told that it's shit, but don't just like. Sorry, no. I'm totally okay with feedback. Don't just like shut down the idea and tell me to shut up. Like I'm like you say, it's like the that whole like psychology of like adults and children. And it's like I'm 8 years of experience. I'm 35. Like I'm not a fucking idiot. Like let's have a discussion. Like tell me why this doesn't fit into the budget. Tell me what the limitations of this idea are. Let's explore these things, because potentially this could have a payoff for the business, for your return. Like even as an employee to have like that sort of idea, I think would have been awesome. But just to be like told like, nah. And that was what was really wicked at Shaki's. Like, I was doing Demodex and we went through and did like a cost analysis of doing that specialty clinic, and like we got like the timing right, the consumables right, and then the fee right, and we probably undercharged there because then when I went to Patterson Burn, I was like charging more and doing the same thing. Like I just like came in and implemented that thing because like. Demodex is like I think something like 80% of over 65-year-olds have a decent amount of it. Yeah. Like so, whether that's your
is it the age is the percentage, right? The age is the percentage.
Yeah,
so like
it's just like exposure to life. So you're more likely to have been sick. You're more likely to have taken antibiotics. You're more likely to have had surgery. You're more likely to have a skin condition. So you're more likely to have Demodex that's infesting your eyelashes.
Yeah, that's like a revenue source right there. Like if you are the place to solve dry eye, like this issue, that's like a revenue source for life, and like that's where kids will go. Their kids will go. Their kids' will go.
Yeah, and it's like Tokoroa. There is a mill one way and a dairy factory the other way. Mm-hmm. They all need safety glasses.
Yeah, exactly. So those are contracts right there, and like businesses are willing to just put money towards anything, right? There's no like corporate nearby, right? Where those mills are?
No.
Oh, okay, yeah. So that's kind of like a source. But then like, so obviously you had your differences with the employer at the time. You think, okay, that's definitely that's a nail in the coffin. I want to build my own thing. Is there anything like you're worried about with business ownership? Because like, how you get, like as an employee, when you bring up some issue to the boss and the boss is like, nah, just we're not doing that. And there's no explanation. They treat you like a child. But then let's say you're in their position. They're busy, they're stressed. They don't have time to like care about like your emotions, like put you down gently. They're just like, no, I've got to do work. Or they got, family at home. Is like, I think as an owner, everything just like spills over. Life just spills over. Versus like with an employee, you can go home and forget about your business. Versus like it's just everything all at once, all the stresses at once. So do you think obviously there's a time investment, right? You can't just own a practice for a year and this is not for me, I'm going to just give up. You have to stick it for 5-10 years, right, to get a return on investment, right? So anything you're worried about with business ownership?
Like, yeah, that's basically because
it is an unknown, right? It is an unknown for you.
Yeah, it's an unknown. Yeah. So, like talking with the accountant about like, do we keep going? It's like I see, is value what you're valuing is it's like is it an opportunity or is it a risk? Do you see opportunities in this business to grow the turnover and potentially, pay down that loan that you've got faster and then be able to, make a return, like you say? Or are you looking at what it is right now and that's what it's capable of? And, as I said, the name's on the door. So if that person retires or goes down, and you've got no patients, or then you've got no income anymore and you can't pay the loan and you're bankrupt.
Yeah.
Yeah. So that's a massive worry. And then, the staff is like, are they loyal to the owner or are they loyal to the job?
So they could just, I'm going to quit. Yes, that's like employing people is not easy. Yeah, there's lots of brick and mortar store, I think, is the hardest type of business to run now, is it? Like the brick and mortar is, it's one of the hardest to run. But I think, these are all unknowns. It's a journey, right? It's fun. You've been through crap beforehand. So I know you'll be able to surpass this easily. It's been a dream of yours. So yeah.
Yeah, and I think the value of being a university student is, gosh, you can live off nothing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So you know what it's going to be like. Yeah, the tough. I doubt it'll be like that though. I'm pretty sure it's going to be good from day one.
Yeah, I think look around the country at optometry practices, and they've definitely had a good life. And I think the next generation come through are doing well. And the scope is massive. The opportunities are massive. It's just whether or not you can provide that value to the people and communicate that value to people that they want to engage with it.
Perfect. What do you like about optometry? What's your favorite aspects? I feel like this is the first question we should ask, right? But we'll like people who have come this far into the podcast, we should sort of give them, or video, we should give them the reward of the most important question. What do you like about optometry and what do you dislike about optometry? And if you were someone who's let's say they were passionate about optometry but they kind of lost the love for it, how do they get it back?
Yeah. So for me,
that's really important, right? Everything's personal, but for you.
Yeah. I had a real good moment between finishing and starting. Mm-hmm. I sort of finished uni, went down to Southland and got straight into Sevens training, tried to get in the Southland Sevens team and narrowly missed out. So I'd been, over that year in 2013, I'd been trying to put on 10 kgs. I played blindside flanker, and I was going to go back to Southland and try and make the squad to go to national. So I finished the exams. I think I knew that I passed the patient exams. I can't remember. Yeah, I knew I didn't have to come back. Was what it was.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. That's nothing too. With I think there was 3 lots of patient exams. The first set is a preliminary. If you pass that, you actually don't have to come and do patient exams again. But then if you fail that, you got to do the patient exams, the official ones. If you fail those, you come back for summer to repeat. And that's it's demoralizing. But carry on.
So I knew that I didn't have to do that. So I was just focused on playing sevens. For the Christmas break, I came up north, went up to Northland for the first time. Was training, was feeling good. Came back to Southland, trained really well, but didn't make the squad again. And then it was I didn't need to be in Southland anymore, so I went up to Auckland and just kind of had a month or so. And I think in that time period, I decided to stay in New Zealand instead of going to Hobart. So then I had to find a different role within Specsavers, and the options were kind of Wellington and Christchurch.
Yeah.
And I ended up going to Christchurch. And so during that time, I had a lot of free time, and my brother put me on to a couple of TED Talks, and one was about your why, like how to actually write it out.
Yeah.
And I came up with, I give people the opportunity to see the world to the best of their ability.
Nice.
And improve people's lives.
Yeah.
And so I think I'd already had in my core that improving people's lives was what I was about.
Yeah.
And that was kind of like I formalized it. So I started a journal then. I put that in the front. And then my brother also sent me this thing that's like the Goldman Sachs Unofficial Guide to Being a Man, wrote that in the front. And then I was just like, I said, had a bunch of time. So I did all this research about an organic deer farm and wrote that in the front. And I was like, so I had these
the deer farm, that seems like another motivating factor, right? Like that's like every single penny you're kind of, it's like going towards this final end. Like, it's like, you know, when what's it called? Roman soldiers, when they die, they go to Elysium. That's like when they die, they go to Elysium. That's kind of like how I think about this end goal.
I love the movie Gladiator, right? When he's like walking through the fields. Like,
yeah, I was visualizing that just then. Yeah.
Yeah. So that's like my like driving factor is like improving people's lives, chasing this end dream. Like when I write my journal, I like think about that environment. I do this thing called future gratitude. I like think about that environment, like sitting on the farm, the smell, the taste, the what you're seeing, the people around you, like what you're doing. Again, like helping people get like this amazing protein, which is venison. Like I love that idea, like caring for the land, caring for the environment, caring for the trees, birds, bees, you know, and the ecology and all that sort of stuff. So yeah, I like established that as my core and then went into work. And so, yeah, being highly or reasonably extroverted, not compared to the guys at Shackies, but yeah, reasonably extroverted, I get lots of energy throughout the day from seeing everyone. People. So I like finish work and like I go for a run up Mount Tohara. I just feel like absolutely buzzed. Or like I get home and then I'm like, right, I'll do a podcast and like talk to somebody else again.
Wow.
Like buzzed out from that. And then when I can help them or explain things, like getting told, like no one's ever explained that to me before, or people, you know, you show them their retinal photograph and they like genuinely thank you, like, well, thank you so much. You know, you sort of, especially like with the myopia discussion now, like we're trying to prevent your future blindness, and like kids kind of don't know what to do with that and can end up in tears, and then you'll be like, it's okay, you're always going to be able to see. We're always going to be able to give you that vision, and we're going to prevent all these risks for later in life. And then like come around, and then you sort of coach, like especially with Ortho K, you got to like coach these kids through trying to get a hard contact lens in their eye. I love the technology, like OCT. I love IPL, dry eye. I love like land expression, and I love communicating. That's why I've like been trying to make all these videos and stuff. So
that's freaking awesome. I see all the content you're pumping out, man. It's really, really good. Did you ever have a mentor at all, or were you just what you wrote on the cover? You were your own mentor.
In optometry, so Dave down in Christchurch, he was pretty good at sitting down and talking with me. Same with the two dispensers there. Steve, I can't remember their last names, and I can't remember the other dispensing director, business director at Rickenham. But they had a really good team. Megan was most of the time away on maternity leave, but when she came back, she was really good. They were really good at sharing the knowledge. So there was like a really awesome team. Like in terms of a Specsavers practice, there's a reason why that practice was like the best in the country, at times best in Australasia. And I think that was part of it. Adrian Patterson, he was no longer practicing when I moved to Patterson Burn, but we had lots of discussions. No one really in Australia, like I said, was kind of by himself,
isolated. Yeah, but I do think like if you're in a young optom, you should have a mentor, right? Like a long-term mentor.
And that's where Juggroot's been great.
Yeah,
Juggroot's been awesome.
Yeah.
To Eagle, like working at Shackies was awesome. I was gutted that I couldn't really sustain living in Hawke's Bay and seeing my daughter in Pukekohe.
Okay.
I would have loved to have stayed there because Tim, Mark, Phil, like I still go when I'm down in Hastings, I go catch up with them where I can. Like they're awesome people. So yeah, when we were talking about Andrew Collins before, the name Andrew Sangster was in my head. Like
amazing
that guy,
optometrist. Yeah, amazing. Yeah.
Yeah. Who was the guy that used to be at Mortimer Hurst? South African guy?
Not Grant Waters, right? No, not Grant Waters.
No. He inspired both of us to write articles for the magazines.
Oh, not Alan Sachs. No, not Alan Sachs.
Yeah, Alan. Yeah,
Alan Sachs. Okay, he's in Australia, right? Or okay,
yeah.
He does a lot of writing. I think at one point in time, he was like the highest paid writer per, like, I don't know, some sort of metric, writer per hour or something in like Australia or something. He told me. So yeah, that's where I kind of got into writing as well. It wasn't really my thing. Like I enjoyed writing, but it was a lot of hours and I couldn't do it. I couldn't do it efficiently. I prefer to write about like dumb things, you know.
Yeah, and now Ross, in Tobor, he's awesome. He sort of pushed the boundaries for a lot of things. One of the first people to do diabetic photo screening. One of the first people to sort of get an OCT in practice. He worked closely with one of the ophthalmologists at the time and around 2000 through the early millennium, really. So yeah, he's been really awesome. So yeah, I've sought out people that I'd like to emulate. Not necessarily all of them, but like the things they do and the way they think about things, and definitely like listen to and read and watch what they do.
Yeah. What about, like, let's say someone's not feeling it in optometry? What would you say to them? Just get over it. What would you say to them?
You might get these rules. Why'd you fucking do this, degree book? Yeah. I don't know. I definitely think finding what you're passionate about and probably the environment you're in is probably not right.
Yeah.
Because I've had that where you're not the right fit for what you're doing. Different. I find being patient centric and doing the best by the patient is what gives me value. Trying for that, like when you let the patient down or the patient's unhappy, like, and this is the case for everyone.
Yeah,
that's freaking horrible.
Yeah.
Especially when there's like no mistake, you just like haven't met their expectations. That's when it's tough.
Yeah.
No. But I think the sort of mindset of that'll be like one person, or you'd be lucky if it was one person a month.
Yeah, I think I always had this thing in my head, like if it's no news, it's good news. You know, like because if you do a really fantastic eye test, not many people will say this is some people will, but a lot of people think this is just normal. But if you slip up just a little bit, then you're going to get that negative feedback, and sometimes the negative feedback, it stings. Like your brain, I think your brain is hardwired to, like, especially with like, I don't know, comments on YouTube. And if you get these like comments, sometimes you get a negative comment, or like even a comment that's not even negative, it's just like worded a bit weirdly. But you can sort of mistake it as negative feedback, and it kind of sticks in your head. Versus like you get 100 comments, 100 good comments, or 100 good patients, 100 well done eye tests, and you don't feel anything at all. So it's funny how the human psychology works. But that's one thing I
was laughing at your overplussing comment, because like. To us, when the person comes back and it's like as simple as minus 0.25 both eyes, and you're like, oh, great, let's fix this, no worries. And they're like, the person is so, not always, but like real angry at you. You just like got to communicate, this is fine, this is awesome, this is great. Or like that, like 5 or 10 degrees astigmatic, axis that's out. One of the guys at a conference I was at once termed that axis being wrong is your fault, my problem. I was like, imagine if you see that too. The other one that I get sort of temporarily angry at, and I always do the joke in my head, is when people are like 10 minutes late and they show up real nonchalant and like no worries at all, and I always say the joke in my head, and it just like makes me laugh and like makes me get over the fact that they're running late. Is like, oh, do you need some reading glasses to help to see your watch? And like, it's just like all in my head, and it's like a sadistic joke to myself.
Yeah,
that just helps me to move on.
Yeah, it's always funny that like those types of like jokes you put in your head that you don't say it obviously, but like it gives you like a psychological up. I think, if you're ever angry at someone, I don't know if it's like a weird thing to do, but yeah, it works.
Yeah, no, it's funny. Yeah, I think just go back to being patient-centric.
Yeah.
Yeah, you're in a health profession after all, and think of it, be a health professional. Professional
Yeah.
being one of the key words. Be
And I
professional.
think a lot of people need to realize like you're like so valuable. Your knowledge is just like, I think when we do the job, we don't perceive how valuable it is, but like it's really valuable. And I think a lot of optometrists out there don't value themselves. What do you think?
Yeah, no,
They
I
don't value
agree.
it.
Like we, the reason why eyes is like so revered and like the experience is quite fearful for a person that knowing that losing someone's vision is like most people's second biggest fear behind getting cancer. Like knowing that, understanding that, respecting that is pretty powerful. And then to be able to go, I think pretty much every practice has a retinal camera now.
Yeah. I mean, you're not doing like it shouldn't be a practice like if you don't have a retinal camera. I mean, I can't believe.
Yeah.
Yeah.
show your patient that fucking photo.
Yeah.
Tell them what the hell they're looking at, and explain to them this is your brain. I'm looking at your brain, and I'm looking at your blood vessels. I have not cut you open.
It's the only organ you can look
see-
into without cutting it open. Yeah. You can see the internal
Yeah,
vasculature. Have you heard of Andrew Huberman? You have, right? Andrew.
Yeah, man.
Yeah. So I think there was like I think he did BJJ for the first time with Lex Friedman, and like Lex Friedman, like they did a choke, and then Lex got like he saw the stars.
Yeah.
And like he was asking because I think Andrew Huberman's a vision scientist. Like, how cool would it be to have Andrew Huberman as your lecturer? I was quite grateful to have lecturers who taught vision science at our university.
Yeah.
Imagine getting taught by Andrew Huberman. Those guys are lucky. I don't think he teaches, does he? Or
Yeah, no, he's a professor.
yeah, but he does teaching. Right?
have-
He's just an adjunct.
I have a funny feeling.
Yeah.
I heard him say that his dad worked with Schrodinger on the
Wow.
amblyopia occlusion stuff.
Okay.
I'm pretty sure I heard him say it. I haven't heard him say it ever again, but I'm pretty sure one of the first times I heard Huberman being interviewed, he was talking about like his dad being a scientist, and he brought up Schrodinger's cats, and I think he said that his dad was part of those experiments. And I was just like, whoa. Because I did, as I said in Dunedin, I did zoology and I did neurophysiology, and we talked about those experiments in both those papers. So that's basically how I got an A+ in that paper. That was the only A+ I got. And I also got plusage for that paper because I got sick for one of the assignments.
Yeah.
So yeah, I think my exam was worth 80%.
Yeah.
And I nailed it. It was like one of the few exams where I like knew references to what I was writing and put those in my answers and my essays.
That's insane. Coming back to what Andrew Huberman was saying, I think Lex was like worried why he was getting butterflies, like from after being choked. Yeah, and then Andrew Huberman said like the retina is the brain, so that's why you get that's just spontaneous firing of the neurons when you lose blood supply. Yeah, so it's kind of that was like But coming back to what you said about the eye is the brain, like the retina is part of its central nervous system.
Yeah, it's central nervous system, it's metabolism, it's vascular system, it's peripheral nervous system, autonomic nervous system, it's immune system. Like fuck, I was reading today that geographic atrophy has upregulation of the alternate complex pathway, which is like the innate immune system. And at the same time, I had an email from a American optometry publication, and it was saying about how people with macular degeneration are more at risk of adverse events to COVID. And I was like, no shit, they got upregulation of their complex. And I was just like, oh, this is so beautiful.
Incredible, yeah. That's it's just so vast. Like it's funny because like I take it for granted, which is not good, but like just show I just thinking about it now. I see it every single day, right? I explain the same thing, like this is the eye, this is the optic nerve, the retina, and people just like their eyes open up. They're like, whoa, when they see the retinal photo. So I'll take that on board. That advice, just show them the photo. It's just amazing what we can do. Last words. Do you have anything to say to? Let's say you're a new grad or you're like in university. Do you have any tips? Like, because I remember you gave me a comprehensive list of tips to start. Like you said, take control of your diary, book in dilations, like just do like proper optometry. Do you have any that was a while ago now. Like you could have refined that list. Do you have any like tips for I don't know people about to go into the real world? Any advice? And like, how should they treat their career? Is that another podcast?
I think to treat your career as you're going to eternally grow. Like I said, I learned that thing today and just like put two and two together.
It's not just glasses.
Yeah, I think what I said about health professional and valuing, that you got to value yourself and you got to value the service and you got to be professional. And being professional means that you're paid for what you do. And what you're doing as an optometrist is in that room. What optometry is as a business is partly what's out the front with the dispensing.
Yep.
But more in the independent realm is more about the service, being a health professional. And I think you'll find a lot more enjoyment about the patient-centered stuff, the health professional stuff, than worrying about the business. The business structure has been there from all time, and that's why it's being arbitraged by corporate, which is good on them. That's, like I say, we live in a capitalist society. But if you want to be an optometrist and you want to be a health professional, start being a health professional. Listen to Andrew Huberman. listen to Peter Attia.
Yeah.
Like geek out on people like Ben Greenfield. Like go down like wacky trails. Listen to Lex Freeman. Listen about like
or even our optometrists in New Zealand, right? Like I think they just need more media coverage. Like the optometrists in New Zealand, like the stuff that they put out, like they're just there's such a huge wealth of passion in this career that to be found.
Yeah,
and I think, sorry, Ryan, I just want to say, like with to cultivate passion, stories are the best thing, right? It's good to hear stories like your story, stories about other optometrists too. I mean, yeah, that's kind of like, that's how you cultivate passion, is through stories. And I think there's an attraction for the human mind towards stories. So, yeah.
Sorry, Shivan. I read Jaggerit today, like in that myopia publication, like beautiful line, and it's like something that me and Jaggerit, like when I was staying with him with Billy, like we just chat about talk shop. They want to hang out with Tim, we just talk shop, and like he said, we need more green time, less screen time, and I was like, Jaggerit, like why is that not like billboard all over?
More green time, less screen time, yeah.
I was like, that's so cool. And it was cool. Like I went running up Tauara the other weekend. I think it was something like 32 cubs were walking up Mount Tauara. And then today, this wee guy that's dad's myopic, he's in the cubs, and I was like, oh, that's so awesome! Like that's so great for like preventing myopia.
Yeah, getting outside. I think pandemic, like with advent of like these, despite they're a bit evil, they're not going anywhere. So they tend to get overused. They're a cause of myopia. So yeah, cause of myopia, cause of a lot of issues, right? These like overuse of these. What's your screen time, Ryan?
Yeah,
I'm embarrassed.
But I wish you'd asked me last Friday, because it would have been freaking awesome. Where is it in? It's in settings, right?
Yeah, I'm on the front screen. I'm 4.5 hours, so that's pretty bad.
Mine's 5 hours at the moment.
5 hours. Yeah, but I guess we use it for stuff, right? We use it for posting and stuff. Well, so that's my excuse.
Yeah. What's my Instagram? 1 hour 15. Oh, I watched a bit of TikTok today.
Yeah.
53 minutes. Messaging. I do a lot of messaging.
Yeah, it's fair enough though. Yeah, it's fair.
Long distance relationship. So I'm very excited about come February that I will no longer be in a long distance relationship.
Oh, nice. Congratulations.
We'll be living together.
Good. I hope that goes well, Ryan.
I think that's the other thing. Like when you're on your own, it's very easy to get that dopamine hit of what's happening.
Exactly right. Yeah, connection's really key.
Yeah.
Cool, Ryan. So it's been, we've been talking for an hour and a half almost, or an hour and 20 minutes. That's good content.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I'm really hoping, good time. So I think we'll call it there. I really appreciate all the like things you've mentioned, like your whole story. And I think this is going to help out like any future optometrists or people who are kind of in the doldrums in their career, or people into optometry maybe. It's going to help them out rather than like getting my perspective the entire time, which isn't like the best. So yeah, any final? Yeah, I mean it's on the same side of same side of the two coins. I don't know. Anyway,
yeah, different sides of the same coin.
Different sides of the same coin. Yeah.
Yeah.
Cool.
Also, I like dark humor and satire, so it's always good to like having a laugh at the industry. I appreciate it, man. It's like some of the stuff we do is ridiculous. I'm always telling my patients, like, this is the most ironic career ever. Like, you are here to see, and I'm asking you, is it blurry? Or like the same with that kid. I'm like, I'm about to measure your eyes. I'm going to make it very blurry, and I'm going to keep making it blurry, and I'm going to flash bright lights in your eyes. I'm going to tell you that you should get outside for about 90 minutes a day, and I'm in here in a dark room with no windows.
The irony.
The irony.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Cool.
Yeah. I think reach out.
Yeah.
Talk
So
to colleagues,
if anyone wants to,
on LinkedIn.
Yeah. So how do people get in touch with you, Ryan, if they want to get in touch with you?
Man, I'm everywhere. So I'm on, as I said, I'm on Instagram in 2 places.
Yeah.
Or 3 places really. Ryan O'Connor NZ and Stag Ryan are 2 pages. Ryan O'Connor NZ is for my podcast, which is the Stag Raw. You can listen to that on basically any podcast platform. I've also got Topal Vision Care on Instagram and Facebook. Again, Stag Raw and Ryan Stag O'Connor on Facebook. If you want to get in touch with me, I'm Ryan O'Connor on LinkedIn. I'm Ryan O'Connor NZ on TikTok. What else is there? Oh yeah, I'm Stag Ryan on Twitter. I have a blog called Stag Ryan.
Everywhere.
Stagraw.com.
Where aren't you? Like, is there a place that you aren't on?
Until today, I wasn't on Discord. Now I'm on Discord. I'm not on what's Donald Trump's thing? Truth.
Social truth. I don't know.
Social truth.
Yeah. Cool. And like you were just about to say something. I interrupted you. Sorry. Like if anyone wants to reach out or be a part of your podcast, maybe.
That too. I'm always looking for guests. But yeah, like I'm on LinkedIn. Flick me a message. You're on LinkedIn. Flick you a message.
Yeah,
like,
we're very responsive.
We're on these platforms. Like I said, like hour 15 on Instagram today. Like I'll respond to your message.
Yeah.
You were talking about comments. I don't get that many comments. So like, reach out. and same with all your classmates and stuff. Like, like I said, I listed off a big list of people that I sort of use as mentors. And it's such a small industry. Just reach out and talk to people. Like I went and visited a practice in Wanaka while I was down there and poked my head in the door in Queenstown as well. Like, just say hi. Say, I'm an optometrist too. I like what you're doing here.
Cool. Awesome, Ryan. Thank you very much. Thank you.
Thank you for getting this far into the video. I really, really hope you found it useful. And if you have any feedback, it's always welcomed. And as always, stay focused and talk soon.